อาจารย์ศรีสมภพครับ you've been I think the leading on the ground person among the academics and researchers and analysts on the Deep South. Ajahn Srisompob has done a decade-long work on collecting data alone. Collecting the data for the Thai Deep South Watch is quite an immense undertaking. They've been very meticulous and now are leading really the go-to data source for figures and numbers on the Deep South violence. Ajahn Srisompob also teaches at the Prince of Songkla University in Patani. He's a Thai Buddhist from outside the region, but he's been living there a very long time, has many contacts and networks, and he's trusted by all sides. He also has been part of the delegation, the Thai delegation at the peace dialogue, peace talks. So Ajahn Srisompob, the floor is yours.
What I'm going to talk today is the issue that I'm trying to, after listening to my friends, Don and Matt and my students, I'm trying to recognize the ideas about the peace process, peace building that is going on, and trying to put it into the perspective of the political process underlying the peace talk or peace dialogues, and I have three components in my talks. Three components. The first two components will be about the ideas, the concept, and the current, the update situation, and the final part will be the substance of the talks that wherein raise the issue of 5-point demands that become controversial right now. The ideas about the peace process, I would like to say that after all of the debates, discussion, or the criticisms that have been around, we might look at it as the peace process as the discourse and the discursive process. This is my own perspective, because it's a process of the effort. This is an effort to build the process that bring about simultaneous and successive emergence of various discursive objects, various ideas, pro and con and uncertainties, to come up with the good or better relationships between people on the ground, and to come up with the fields to pray, because this is not just the peace process that is the leadership talks on top, but is the process that open the space for people of different backgrounds on top, on the middle ground, on the grassroots levels, academics, civil societies, like religious leaders, even the grassroots organization, people from the grassroots organization also engaged in the whole process. This is amazing to me. This is my own experience. So the interplay between people from different groups and the interplay of the ideas and concepts about peace or peace dialogues, or whatever you might talk about related to the solutions of the Deep South violence. This is the critical process, the interplay between the discourse, and we have developed so far over 2 years of the development behind the scene or on the ground, like my friend Don talk about the meeting between Thaksins and insurgents leaders in Malaysia, and there have been many talks before that, and we have developed the situation that we have fields to pray, open these fields to pray, and these fields has become a common ground for different group of people, and this common ground. We could, in this process, we could expect the ultimate solutions pretty soon, but we expect that the things would evolve step by step, become more listenable down the road. Eventually, we expect that peace process or the whole process will bring about the peace structures and spaces for more and more people, and this space will be safe and decent, or safe this space for all people. So this is the whole process that we are expecting to come up with safe and sound public space. This is going on. The whole process is going on. For my own experience, over 2 or 3 years, it has been my impressive experience, and I get involved in different things, the spheres of discussion, the area of talks, relationship between different groups, including the government or securities staffs of military, police, SB pact, more and more of this leadership and the officials in general get involved in the whole process. So this is a very, I would say that this is a very constructive relation. We construct the idea, we construct the relationship, and we cast the idea around, and it evolve. People kick the ball, play the balls together in the process, and in this process, BIN also is praying. They come to pray in this ground, in these fields, because as Don just mentioned, BIN never show up in the talks. They are really the underground movement. They never show up their faces to the public. But suddenly they show up, they talk to the people directly, to YouTube or whatever they have the means for communications. This is amazing to me because the process get momentum, and this is the idea that is hidden behind the move of BIN. They just would like to have recognition, political recognition. Not only the recognition of BIN per se, but recognition of the right of the Malay-Muslim, Patani Malay-Muslim people. So this is a very progressive process that we have seen in this movement, in the peace process movement. So I was show you about the situation. So this is the idea. So the situation on the ground is, if you look at the documents that Kun Bangkok Pandit analyzed, this is interesting, very excellent analysis of the current situation, the pattern of the current situation, violent situation. I would like to say that if we look at this, the whole situation since 2004 up until now, it's the pattern is like up and down all the ways, you know. But we can see if we try to model the fluctuations of the statistics using the regression. You know, this is the regression lines, you know, and we can see this is the model that beginning from 2004, the level of violence have increased, get higher, then it moved down to 2007. After 2007, it moved down, and then after 2007, it appeared to be like it's going to increase the level of violence. This is the models of incidents of violence, the model of incidents of violence. We might call this like the stacking model of parabola model of violence incidents. In Thai words, it's like we call the tok thong chang, elephant's belly or something like that. You know, the shape is like elephant belly. This is the pattern that if we look at the incidence of violence, but then if we look at the casualties, including death and injuries. The regression lines have shown the stable lines or parallel lines, you know, over years, in 10 years, like this. That means I agree with Bangkok Bandit that the critical indicators of level of violence is the death, and the death is death tolls is more significant than the injuries or the incidents per se, but the death toll can indicate the level of violence, and we can see that over years, over 9 years, the level of violence becomes stable, more and more stable, and we can see the pattern like this. I would like to summarize this pattern is called protracted. It is protracted level of violence over year, over months. Situation will be stable. Every day, about 5 people die. About 5 casualties from the incident of violence. 2 died and 3 get injured. This is the stable statistic that we have so far, in spite of the variations of the incidents of violence. So the pattern is stable, constant level of violence. But in this year, beginning from this year, the level of casualties of the hard target get increases. This is a pattern that have been influenced by the peace process, because I have heard from the meeting rooms in the peace talk rooms that the Thai representatives ask the BAN that you should refrain from attacking these innocent people or soft target. So this is the thing that they propose, the Thai side propose in the meeting, and we accept that. Practically, we accept that. So since February level of violence target at the hard target got increases. This is the trend that we have seen so far. So we can say that the violence forces tend to move at the constant level unless being acted upon by other forces. That means they have the momentum of violence, and at the same time there has been many forces working together to make it stable. And one of the forces that has influence on this level of constant violence is peace process. I think this is a peace process, or the roles of the peoples in different sections, including the local leadership, NGO, CSO organizations, working together in trying to change the situation, in trying to propose the idea of non-violent solutions to the conflict on the ground. So this is the general trend that we have so far. First, the protracted violence. Second, the constant level of casualties. Third, a trend toward increasing attacks on hard target. And fourth is the peace process. The peace force have significant or critical level of force to slow down the momentum of violence. So then we come back to the final part of my analysis. I said that BN has tried to bring about the recognition of the status of BN itself and the Malay-Muslim in general. So political recognition is critical in the process of peace building. And this is the document that BN presented to Thai representatives in September, the latest one, the so-called 38 pages, 5-point demand, the extensions of the elaboration of 5-point demands. This is really systematic. I would say that this is really systematic presentation of the ideas that BN has tried to elaborate the 5-point demand to the Thai government, and it represents the whole concept of peace process that BN have in their minds, and it represents what I think the roadmap for peace in from BN side. The components comprise of introduction and the explanation of demand number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5, and then they have time frame to implement the peace process, and they have the discussion about the things. Every issue they have extended discussion. They mention about constitutional frames or constitutional chapters that support the demands that they propose. So the first part of it, I will try to summarize the documents. The first part of it, this is general explanation of the 5-point demands proposed by BN. The critical issue is BN say that BN does not mean the government must immediately and fully accept the 5 demands. This is not the demand that they would like to have. They just would like to have the response from the Thai government the response to agree in principle to talk about this, agree in principle to talk about 5 demands. That's enough for them, and they talk, agree to talk by stages. They use the word talk by stages, step by step. So they clearly state that we don't need to have a conclusion right now or immediately, but you just accept that this is an issue that we can talk. That is enough for the next step of peace process. And this is a kind of a different process that they try to present or try to present the what I just said, that the peace roadmap. They try to show that they have the peace roadmap step by step, beginning from recognition of BRN, recognition of Patani Malay nations, Bangsa, Melayu, Patani, then accept 5 demands, have agreement, then ceasefires, then have a peace accord implemented. This is very elaborated, very delicate process that they propose in the document. So this is the idea that we proposed at first, but it seemed to be like this is the response from Thai state at first when they got the 5-point demand, no, rejecting everything. It appeared to be like that, but just this is just a feelings from the Thai side, but in the process, I think right now, after the deliberative process organized by the SBPAC, organized by National Security Council, and even from the armies, there were many deliberative process inside the agencies, the working groups, the study groups, the talk with different peoples on the ground, to talk to the academics, talk to the civil society leaders, religious leaders, different group of people. The Thai securities, the Thai national security agencies have tried to talk to different group of people in, trying to find out the response, the appropriate response to the 5-point demands, and this is interesting process that is going on, and I will move up to other issue that we are in present. Demand number 1, recognition of BRN as representative. This is demand number 1. The core concept is this is what I just said. This peace dialogue is between the representative of Patani freedom fighters, which are led by BRN, and this is a talk between BRN and the Kingdom of Thailand. Based on the following condition, BRN is not separatist. We are representative of the Patani Malay Muslim nations of Bangsa, Melayu, Patani. The idea about nations of Bangsa, Melayu is very clear, presented in the demand of BRN. And this demand, they say that this demand relevant to the Thai Thai constitution. And BIN is not separatist movement. This is a clear statement. BIN is not the separatist movement. The offer in return for accepting this demand is they will stop operation on soft targets. This is a crucial point. Stop operation on the soft target, and they will stop operation on economic targets, and this will take effect immediately once the Thai side accept this principle. This is the demand number one. And demand number two, the core idea is the Malaysia as a mediator. They just want Malaysia as mediator. So the idea is Malaysia, time has come to the government of Thailand to accept Malaysia as the mediator in the peace dialogue. So this is a peace dialogue, and they just would like to move it to peace negotiation. And offer in return for accepting this demand is they will not carry out operation on teachers, security patrols on the different groups. The main target of this is they will not carry out operation on the teachers, and they request the army that they have to guard economic targets, but replace the guard by private security guards in stages. So this is the second demand. The third demand is OIC, ASEAN, and NGO in peace process. The idea is they just would like to have these people as a peace, to take part in the peace negotiation, and to provide the credibility and accountability to the process. So the offer in return is BIN will be fully committed to all jointly agreed consensus in every session in the future. This is the offer in returns. Demand number 4, I would like to go into this in detail. Rights of Malay Patani community. The core idea is to recognize the existence of, they use the word sovereignty, to recognize the existence of the sovereignty of the Patani Malay nations in Patani land or homeland. This is a crucial point that they try to convince, to try to make it clear that they would like to have rights for the Malay-Muslim, Patani Malay-Muslim people. And the idea is, they confirm that this demand is relevant to the Thai constitution. The idea is not demanding territorial separations, but demanding for the acceptance of the rights of the people. This is clear that in spite of the fact that they talk about something called sovereignty, which is really controversial, but in the definition they said that they are not demanding territorial separation from the Thai kingdom. So this is crucial. And this is relevant to the constitution of Thailand, the rights of the people, freedom of the people. And they talk about, in this demand number 4, they talk about the limited autonomy. They use the word limited autonomy, not full autonomy, limited autonomy. And the rights for self-determination. they talk about the right for self-determination, which is also controversial. The meanings of rights for self-determination are recognition of Malay Patani community and special administrative regions and other things. The two major things are recognition of Malay Patani community and special administrative regions, or a form of decentralization. The offer in return for demand number 4 is fully stop operation in stages. They said fully stop operation in stages. This is like the ultimate demand, because offer in return is really clear that they will stop the operation. In Songkla, in Yala, in Narathiwat, in Patani, they have timelines for the stop of the operation. Like Songkla, it will start from January 2014. Yala, it will start from April 2014. Narathiwat, it will start in July 2014, and Patani starting from October 2014. So this is a clear timeline for a roadmap of peace. And demand number 5, release of prisoners. The idea is to release prisoner detainees related to southern Thailand unrest, pardons for freedom fighters that have been sentenced and jailed, revocation of the warrants of arrest, and protecting the people from judicial killings, extrajudicial killings. So this is the idea. And they offer in return, they will commit a proper ceasefire and discuss about it thoroughly in stages. And the idea, this is interesting offer. 10 detainees or 10 warrants per one ampere, stop one ampere operations. These really concrete ideas of exchanging for the release of the prisoner and detainees. So, in conclusion, I would like to say that politics of recognition is the consequence of rival discourse in political conflict. So it is clear that in the peace-building effort under protracted violence conflict in Thailand, this process is going on. And in the process, recognition of UN and rights of Patani Malay Muslims has set in motion and become one of the key elements of the peace process, whether it is going to be successful or failed process, but the thing is going on. Yes, this is my idea. Thank you.
Now we have some time, 20 minutes or so of open discussion, questions and comments. What Ajahn Srisompob has presented is very much in consonance with what Danyal was saying, his comments about rights, recognition, accommodation. Now the modalities can be flexible, can be negotiated, but I think that first and foremost, recognizing and accommodating are the key. Questions, comments?
Anthony Davis with IHS Janes, so most of my work is security related. I'd just like to make a comment which goes to something that Don said, which I took to be a differentiation between track 1, what we've been talking about for most of the morning in KL, and what I understood him to be talking about in relation to a purported track 2, which would be, as I understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, partly secret, which would involve intelligence officers who've been working on the ground for many years, decades, going out, looking for people on the ground, and basically starting a second process, track 2. And the point that I'd like to make is I think this would be a complete catastrophe. I think this would totally muddy the waters. It would take, as I think you were suggesting, it should take the heat or the focus off track 1 and open a Pandora's box to everything that you yourself said happened in the 70s and 80s. Thai military intelligence officers spreading out across the South, across the world, and conducting secret, non-productive negotiations with people that nobody knows, nobody has any reference to who they are or who they represent. So I'd just like to make that simple point, potentially catastrophic.
Usually when we say track 2, we're talking about NGOs, but this is a secret track, and it involves, what I mean by secret track is that it won't go on YouTube. What I'm saying is that it's not underground, it's people, some of them who've been come to the table. It's people with command and control on the ground. People that the Thai knew from the old days, that the Thai had been talking to some Thai officials, military officials. So it's nothing new. It's just kind of more reduced down to a very, very minimum level, without Malaysia, without the whole shebang. Just a very few individual. We're talking about maybe 2 or 3 people.
Sure, but let me just add in conclusion that I think that plays back into what I know a lot of, or some Thai military officers are interested in doing, which is reducing everything to local peace deals. We know the guy who's operating in Patani, right? So we're going to head out there, we're going to have a local peace deal. It's all going to be fine. The same thing will happen in Patani, the same thing will happen in Narathiwat. And basically, it's back to it's going back to where we've already been. I mean, but don't believe that they are hoping it's all going to come together in one conclusion. I don't think that's the idea at all. I think the idea is we sort this out area by area, ampere by ampere, and hope that we don't have to surrender anything in the process.
But that's not the case at all. What I'm talking about is these are guys in exile who basically hardliners, if you want to use that word, guys who are living abroad, not in southern Thailand. These are part of the leadership who have yet to surface, put it that way. We're not talking about ampere by ampere. At least that's what they're telling me anyway.
Ian Hollingworth, I'm from the Bangkok Non-Violent Conflicts Workshop. I don't want to take anything away from what Matthew said at the start, but I do want to amplify one of his comments where he said violence is the only real leverage that militants have. Now, in this conflict, as in conflicts throughout the world, it's the violence that gets all the publicity. Non-violent civil resistance goes on, but often under the radar. It does exist in the South, as we've heard. We've heard about banners and signs and spray painting. So my point is the non-violent civil resistance must be encouraged. The relationship between the non-violent and the violent groups should be studied and developed.
I'm Colonel Kananavaraj from the Royal Thai Army Command and Staff College. I would like to comment on the barking up the wrong tree that Don said. I think we are barking up the wrong tree for some reason. Is that when we did the talks with the CPM in the 80s and the 90s, we barked up the tree at the trunk level. We started from bottom up. We started talking to, at sergeant level, talking to food deliverymen, and in the end we got up to Chin Peng, and we actually got them CPM, Malaysia and Thailand to talk in Phuket in 1990. The problem with what we have today is that we are barking up at the top of the tree. We are talking at the top. People on the bottom, they don't know who BIN coordinate is. I work in the South for a year. I have students coming in from the South, a new batch every year coming to Staff College, and we agree that nobody knows who BIN coordinate is. This is something that maybe is a threat model that the military like. and we play with it. And suddenly we found people who are wanting to be BIN coordinate, and they could not control anything on the ground. Look at the IRA, for example. When they start talking, they can stop the violence. If BIN are real, stop the violence for 1 month, and then that will give them some credibility. Another thing that we study, we use an American term, hybrid threat. A hybrid threat is insurgency and organized crime. And if we're not looking at these two trees, it's not going to work. Because if you go down to Sukhai Golok, down in southern tip, you will see Sukhai Golok is in the red area of Narathiwat, surrounded by red area. But Sukhai Golok is like Las Vegas. Party is going on all the time, 24 hours a day. And people from the southern borders, from Malaysia and Singapore, they come here to party. And so I go get 1 bomb a year and nobody dies. But the rest of the area, they get everything. So if you want to bark up the right tree, talk to the businessmen in Sukhai Golok. They would have the information of who they talk to keep peace. Thank you.
Colonel, I have to amplify. Could you amplify? Sukhai Golok is not so violent, and I think maybe it applies to Betong too. What are you implying?
I'm just implying that the businessmen in those areas knows who to talk to, and those are the border areas, and could be linked to organized crime, but that's not in my area. Thank you.
I just wanted to refer to something that Matt said earlier, that perhaps the sort of apathy in the wider sort of Thai public, it could be a positive thing in terms of drawing away attention from the process, perhaps the peace process, and perhaps preventing a sort of nationalist backlash. But I was wondering whether Matt or perhaps Srisompob could discuss that eventually, if there's going to be a political solution to this issue, it really needs to engage with the wider Thai society, and whether there's any civil society action outside of the southern border provinces that are looking towards drawing sort of wider national support for a political solution.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, and I think I was careful to qualify what I said by saying near term, because ultimately there will have to be buy-in at a national level, and any settlement is going to have to be approved by Parliament, and it shouldn't have to contend with the kind of virulent nationalist or partisan feelings that we've seen on the Cambodian border issue. So yeah, I think it's definitely a valid point. But like I said, just in the near term, how to achieve it is another issue. But it may be easier to do if there's an agreement to point to.
My name is Colonel Apisak from Strategic Study Center. I would like to share my view here. If we are looking at the Philippines case, we are knowing that the peace process is a long way to go. Even though you can settle down with maybe one fraction of the tables, then maybe some fraction within the faction will not agree with the peace process. They will increase the other violence. Therefore, it cannot fully hope that we can end with only sit down and talk with the VIN as such. To my point, I think that we are on the right track now. We are trying to solve the violence with the peaceful means. However, to achieving peace, which is the end state, which both sides want to achieve, but maybe with the different mechanisms. One side they use the violence to achieve their end, and as such, it's peace at the end. It's just like it create war, to win the war. So we hope that by the end we're achieving peace. So Thailand, we are Buddhism majority, but in the southernmost province, our Buddhism people are minority. So, I mean, one role of our armed forces is to provide peace and stability for the minority of Thai people within the Down South. But at the present phenomenon that conquer with the same world environment, we know that conflict happen many ways everywhere around the world. They use the terrorist tactic to win their objective. So what is the guarantee for the right of the people, the Thai minority people in the Down South? That is the question we cannot look over if we want to settle down the peace in the Down South. Well, I'm not going to blame, for example, Malaysia. Malaysia, our neighborhood country, they are Muslim majority. Still, they have the policy of the government, Pumbut. I think you all know very well about the Pumbut. So that is to guarantee the right of majority, but at the same time, they're pressing on the minority of the country. But I don't see that in Thailand. I think freedom are guaranteed everywhere in Thailand. It depends on how you want to achieve it. So I think we have more choice in the Down South, what to achieving peace without using the violence or using the life of people, minority people in the Down South at the human shield. Thank you, that's my point.
With the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but let me make this clear first that what I say from now on will not be on the ministry's behalf or the government's. And I have...
Please tell us your name too.
My name is Natita Brahmapudi from the Department of Treaty and Legal Affairs. And I have 5 comments to make here. Personally, I think that there are too many fora involving in the peace talks going on at the moment, because there have been discussions between relevant agencies and authorities like the National Intelligence Agency and the SBPAC and the National Security Council and so on, many more. All of those fora, there are still a lot of disagreement, and I think that the best way, the thing that we have to do now is that we have to compile everything and make it a one voice. Like whatever we say, whatever the Thai side says, we have to be, everything has to correlate with one another. And at every forum, we have to tell the other fora what we have, and everything must agree with everything else that has been said at the other forum as well. And my second comment will be on the demands, the 5 demands presented by the BRN. BRN, the Thai government's recognition of the BRN's existence is one thing, but then BRN's representative of the Patani Malayu people is another. It's a different issue. As Danyal has said, that there are also many other groups involving in the zone, and are they actually and genuinely representing the voice of the people in the areas is an essential issue that we have to tackle. And with reference to time, should there be any time frame for the peace talk? I don't think that a time frame can be actually maintained, because this is a delicate issue. No one can avoid that fact. But I think that every step that both sides have to take has to be taken very cautiously, because this is a very, very delicate issue, and we have to be very concerned about the terminology of each word we use, like what we call the BRN or other groups or activists. And my other comment would be that I don't think we should compare our situation in the southern border province with other situations like the Aceh, Indonesia, or the MILF in the Philippines, or the IRA in Ireland, because this is a different context. We might wonder, like the peace talk that happened in Aceh, why was it successful? But why is the peace talk going on in Thailand is currently stalled? I don't think that it can be compared, and I think that would be the end of my comments.
Now let me come back to the speakers. Anything you would like to add? Dan, you have to say something. Don first.
I'd like to add what the Colonel said. Before I said that, I'll respond to this comment. I'd like to make a little announcement. Tomorrow night at the Foreign Press Club, FCCT, from 7 to 9, there will be an event on the South as well. 3 speakers from the ground. These are community leaders with great followers. I think it's important to hear what to say if you guys are free. To just add on what the Colonel was saying is that the Patani Malay didn't challenge or they questioned the sovereignty of the Thai state after the annexation or after the border was drawn in the early 1900s. Armed insurgency didn't come up until mid-60s. So the question is, maybe the answer or the solution to this is that maybe go back to history. How did the two sides establish that comfort level, and what went wrong? For me, just off the top of my head, my neighborhood, we jokingly call it West Bank. It feels like an occupied territory. I live in the old market in Yala, and you look around it from the perspective of the local Malays, it feels very much like an occupied territory. Most of the bureaucrats are Buddhists from somewhere else, plus security forces, thousands of security forces, and so it adds on that. I think the solution might be in lifting up the status of the Malay. Speaking about rights, I'm not sure that's the issue. For me, development is not a problem or the rights. I think it's a narrative. The Patani Malay narrative. The first time I went to the region was back in the late 90s, 97, and after 2 weeks I was convinced that a new generation will come up. Why? Because what I witnessed down there back during peacetime was that there's totally different narrative. The Thai state has its own. The Patani Malay have its own. They have own set of myth, its heroes, its history, its cultural space. The challenge is how to merge that or how to expand the Thai narrative to include their Patani Malay narrative. I think that's the heart of the issue here.
I want to say I appreciate Ian Hollingworth's comment about nonviolent resistance, and I think it accords with what Danyal said about allowing space for it. And I'm aware of some academic research that suggests that nonviolent resistance is actually quite effective in achieving political aims. So I think it does deserve a lot more attention and presents an alternative to violence. Sungai Golok, I think, there have been fatalities and bombings there, which is not to say that there aren't arrangements, but I think we have to recognize that there is organized crime throughout Thailand, whereas there's an insurgency only in the Deep South. So I think that's a fundamental fact. Let's see, what else? I got that. Spoilers, and what are the guarantees for the minorities in the South, meaning the Buddhist minority, if there's some sort of agreement? I would say minority may be better served by changes or an agreement that obviates the need for violence, because as things stand today, they have no guarantees.
เด็กๆอย่างผมเนี่ยไม่อาจที่จะเลือกข้างได้ว่าจะอยู่ฝั่งไหนเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยข้อเสนอทั้งหมดที่ผมพูดไปเนี่ยมันเป็นความเป็นห่วงของทั้งสองฝ่ายแล้วก็ไม่ได้เข้าข้างใครฝ่ายใดฝ่ายหนึ่งด้วยแต่สิ่งสำคัญของข้อเสนอเนี่ยเราเองก็มีความหวัง I hope stop killing at 3 borders southern Thailand. Thank you.
I'm young. As a young person like me, I cannot choose sides, but I speak for both sides, and what I have mentioned, what I have said, applies to both sides. And my proposal, my suggestion is, and my hope is to stop the violence. Srisompob, you have the last word. I think what you presented, this is a plan. I mean, the BRN, by the way, this is a big question. Does the BRN represent the insurgency? I've asked a lot of people, including Danyal, and I gone to the area and asked around. The consensus seems to be that the BRN represents at least 80%. Okay, if we can put it all to 100%. And the other groups, like BIBP or GMIP, PULO, we'll have to see if they would join forces or they would throw in their lot with the BRN in the months ahead. Now, Ajahn, this is a plan that they have. It's very concrete, as you mentioned, and you've dissected it down to the different keywords. This is a deliberate 5 demands, 38 pages. It's not written lightly, and you have analyzed it to the keywords, the key concessions. If the Thai state does this, they will do this in return. I think this is quite remarkable. And it's really a step in the long but right direction. Should the Thai state now come back with their own plan? Does the Thai government have a plan?
This is the critical moment of the peace process in the Deep South provinces. We need to have a roadmap for peace, and right now BRN has proposed 5 demands which can be read as peace roadmap by BRN, but from the Thai side, unfortunately, we still working on that. Still have yet to come up with the tangible or concrete peace roadmap. So I hope that we have to work harder to find out the peace roadmap for our national interests and for our political solutions, and eventually the whole process will lead to the combinations of the insurgents organization or the rebels organizations and the roadmaps of the government. So we need to have some kind of combination or the mix between both sides of roadmap, and maybe there might be other organizations like PULO or BIPP roadmap. We need to combine all roadmaps for peace together. That will be a better path for peace, and the obstacles now is we still need to build the peace roadmap, a real peace roadmap for the whole process.
Okay, thank you, Kapachan. The Southern Peace Talks, this insurgency, the last time we had a deadly internal conflict in Thailand like this was during the communist insurgency, the Communist Party of Thailand in the 60s and 70s. And that, interestingly, that turned on external factors, the split between the PRC and the USSR, and then the external environment, the Indochina situation. So the external element was key. Internally, development made some headway, and in 1980 they had a political offensive. This PM's order 66/2523, and that basically allowed amnesty and attracted insurgents to come back into the cities and join the fray, the society again. Now in the Deep South, I don't see the external factors as key. So something has to be done inside. Unlike Pravihan, unlike which we will hear the verdict on the 11th November, unlike the amnesty bill, which we will know in the hours ahead, what's gonna, something we'll have to give. On the Southern Peace Talks, it's gonna be an ongoing grind. One thing that I think has come out of this panel is that the violence is not going to stop anytime soon. And another is that the peace talks have to be given a chance. I think it should really be the only game in town. It's a step in the right direction, but a murky and long direction. I hope that we would not have to have more forums in the south, because that would mean that the insurgency is getting worse and not being solved. But if it's the case, then we will have another forum in due course. In the meantime, please join me in thanking all the speakers, Don Pathan, Matt Wheeler, Ajahn Srisompob, and especially Danyal Abdulloh from Patani. Thank you very much.